Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Di, and today I'm sharing with you my diary entry for the week of August 27th through September 2nd. Today is Saturday, September 2nd. It is September. Kind of can't believe it. August felt like it flew by, but I think it's because I participated in 2 readathons, and you know, when you're like doing something, it kind of makes the time go by faster. And so yeah, I just finished filming my end of month wax and reading videos, and I can't believe how much I read in the month of August. It was quite a lot. I also didn't do any of my like tracking that I normally do for my end of month reading reflections video, so I had to stay up late last night to do that, and I need to be more on the ball about doing that. And like my manga spreadsheet hasn't been touched since January, I don't think. I'm really behind on that. So I foresee a lot of like end of the year paperwork to get all of my stats and everything done. I need to find an easier way to get the stats that I want, because I'm just too like consumed with trying to get all of the details and everything, and then I forget to input things, and it just takes a lot of time. And with how many videos I've been doing this year, I really don't have lots of free time to do that. So yeah, I just kind of want some free time to just like relax. But that hasn't been happening. In any case, I did finish out my month strong. I finished all of my Orilium magical readathon prompts, so I am good to go for my second year of studying the Master of Elements for my character. I also got my character a dragon rider's license during the readathon. I got her a part-time job as a bog cataloger. I summoned an impling, so now I've got a new friend for my character in the LDO world. And so yeah, it's just always a really fun time. There's a lot to do with that readathon, and you know, you can be as active or as inactive as you want with it, but I kind of feel like with everything that happens, there's so much like energy that just makes you want to do more and participate more and get all of these things for your character, and it's just so much fun. And so yeah, I finished out everything that I needed to read for my readathon prompts, and it was great. So now we're here in the beginning of September, and I'm starting on another readathon, the Seasonathon Academy readathon, and I just recently got introduced to the Sufferathon Hotel Readathon, which is going on all month, but that one's kind of an impromptu type readathon where you don't get your prompts up front. You get them as you go through during the month, and you need to complete them during the week. So I think they're weekly prompts. And so yeah, I foresee having an interesting time in September. Plus it's my booktube anniversary month and my birthday month, so lots of excitement there. In fact, I believe my booktube anniversary date, like the date I put on my very first video, was September 3rd. So September 3rd, I'll make 8 years on booktube. It's a little bit surprising. I did take a break in between in the years, kind of earlier on in my kind of video creating time. But I've been pretty consistent with videos the last few years. I've just really enjoyed talking with everybody about the reads and participating in readathons and finding out what everybody else is reading and getting all kinds of recommendations. And so yeah, it's been a load of fun. And so thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for spending some time with me today. And let's get into what I have for this week. So I finished a few things, like I had mentioned. I'm in the middle of a couple things, and then I will finally show you a little bit of a knitting update in this video. So let's get started. First thing I have here was from one of my Orilium Magical Readathon classes, which was the Animal Studies class, and I used this for my pet pick. My Monochrome Manga Club members helped me pick this because I don't have a pet. And so they basically blind pulled from my Grell jar, and then my daughter went and picked one of those slips blindly, and it ended up being Inuyasha. So here's volume 1 of Inuyasha by Rumiko Takahashi. This was published by Viz Rated Older Teens. So this is a story about our female character here named Kagome, and her family lives at a shrine, a Japanese shrine. And on the property of this shrine is a well. And one day, her very adorable, plump cat named Buyo goes into the housed area where the well is and is kind of crying. Buyo's kind of stuck. And so she goes in to try to find her cat and ends up being kidnapped by a demon through the well. And when she kind of fights off the demon and finally gets the demon to go away, she ends up in feudal era Japan. And so she's traveled back in time, and right as she has pulled herself out of the well, she notices a dog demon that's been retained to a tree. And anyway, there are things that happen, there are revelations that come about in which you find out that Kagome is the reincarnation of one of the characters in this feudal era, and why Inuyasha, who's this character, is retained to the tree. And it ends up being this really like epic journey about finding these shards of this sacred jewel, which all the demons want because it gives them immense power, and trying to collect them and put the jewel back together so that no other demon can take advantage of the powers and things like that. It's just a really interesting series. You also see Kagome go back and forth from this feudal period to the more present time. And just how she like deals with being in a time so long ago and the things that happened there and just things like that. And it's a nice adventure. There's some funny moments, and it's just a really entertaining series. So I have not ever read this series before. This is my first time actually reading a volume from this series, but I have watched the anime. I've watched the anime. I've watched all of the movies. I've watched the sequel of the anime, and I've watched a little bit of the spin-off series. And I've just really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. This really was a nostalgic read for me. It just brings me back to that time where I first watched Inuyasha, the very first episode. And it's really close to what I remember watching. So I really enjoyed this. This, though, is a flipped volume. You'll notice this reads like a regular book, which is not normal for me. Normally, I'd be reading from this side. But this has been flipped. And so it took me a little bit of time to catch my bearings and read in the correct direction. But it was still a really entertaining read, a really nostalgic read, and I really enjoyed it. And so I ended up giving this one 4 stars. The next thing I finished this week actually helped me to finish a series. So this is Cherish by Tracy Wolff. This is the 6th book in the Crave series. And unfortunately, this fell short for me as far as the series ending book. So in this one, our characters are traveling to the Shadow Realm to try to get the antidote to a poison which one of the characters from a previous book has been infected with. And that poison is lethal. So they need to go to the Shadow Realm in order to get the antidote, otherwise he will die. Amongst all of this, there has been changes in the courts of this world, because this world has lots of different supernatural creatures. You've got the vampire court, you've got the dragon court, you've got the gargoyle court, witch court, And things have just been up in kind of arms, I guess, because of a few things that happened in previous installments in this book. And so you've got characters here trying to decide what they're going to do, what is best to do, and how to make those decisions with the partners that they have. So there's a lot of kind of drama, but there's that questing element, and I just really enjoy these characters. I've enjoyed watching these characters throughout all of the books in this series. I feel like of this series, though, the first book is the one that kind of doesn't fit, because the rest of the books, from books 2 through 6, they all have a questing element. There's always something to get to help with the situation that's going on. But in the first book, there isn't that element. And it just kind of the way that it's kind of set up and things like that don't quite fit with the rest of the series. So I will say that if you're interested in this series, from either hearing me talk about it or hearing other people talk about it, but have read the first book and don't enjoy it, go to the second book and see what you think. Because for me, the first book really doesn't fit with the rest of the books in this series. I think from book 2 through book 6 is kind of the meat of the series. That's what this series is about. But you have to read book 1 because it gives you the backgrounds of all of the characters, and it shows you how they meet each other and kind of gives you the ground foundation of the world. But yeah, excellent series. Even though I was unhappy with where this book left me, I still really enjoyed the series on a whole. I just feel like this particular installment could have had more in it. I feel like the things that happened towards the end of this book were rushed. I feel like more time could have been spent fleshing out what had happened, maybe given a bit extra suspense, maybe some little extra drama in the questing aspect. I also would have liked to see more time spent with one of the particular couples that is not like the main couple for the series, but one of the side couples. Because for me, I've been kind of hoping to see that couple get together for a while, and I feel like we didn't ever get the time that I wanted with that couple. And so I'm kind of hoping to see that couple later in the future. Maybe they're going to get their own spin-off series. But I'm really interested to maybe have a secondary series with these characters to see what happens with everything that they have plans for, that they made decisions on at the very end of this book. I want to see their ideas brought to life. I want to see how they are faring with the decisions that they made and things like that. I want to see them grow. I want to see them become adults, because a lot of the time that we spend with them, they're teenagers. And even though you've got vampires and dragons and things, the vampires are immortal, but the dragons are not. And so they're still growing, those characters. The witches, they're still growing. And so I want to see them grow into adults and see what kind of adults they'll be, what they decide to do with their lives. Even though we kind of get a base of what some of them will do here, I just feel incomplete, I guess. So yeah, even though I was disappointed with this, I still really enjoyed the series. I think this was definitely a good installment, but I feel like there should be one more book. I definitely feel like there should be one more book. That being said, there is a spin-off series coming out. I believe it was supposed to come out this month, but last I checked, which was just this week, it has been pushed back to January. So I'm eagerly anticipating that one, because the character that they chose to write the spin-off on, I'm interested in. And so, yes, really enjoyed this. Glad to finish another series. This has definitely been kind of like the series of this year for me, because I read most of it this year. and I really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend this one also, even though I was slightly disappointed with this one. I did in fact read the bonus content that is in this one, because it does deal with the Shadow Realm, which is where our characters go here. But I haven't read through the bonus content in my other two editions. So that's the Barnes & Noble edition with the Dragon Court stuff, and the Target edition with the Vampire Court bonus content. So I still get to live in this world a little bit longer, but I don't consider those part of having finished this series or finished this book. And so, yeah, really, really enjoyed it. So that was for the vampire prompt for my shape-shifting class. So read a book with vampires in it, and there's lots of vampires in that. And then for my Impling summoning, I had to read a book that satisfied all of these prompts that connected to each other, and this book actually fit all of those prompts. So I read Five Nights at Freddy's, Fazbear Frights 1 and 2, which is Into the Pit and Fetch. So this is a bind-up of the first and second books in this series, and it's by Scott Cawthon, Ellie Cooper, Andrea Wagoner, and Carly Ann West. So this book is a bind-up of the two bind-ups of short stories. So there's 3 short stories in each of the bind-ups. So there's 6 short stories in total in this edition. Now this edition is not on Goodreads. I don't know why. I can't find it by ISBN number anywhere on the internet. But obviously I have this book in my hands. It was published by Scholastic. I looked it up on Scholastic and it's not there. It's an imprint of AFK is the imprint from Scholastic. I tried to look there and it's not there. Like I said, I looked it up by ISBN number and I can't find it. But I did buy this at Sam's Club in Hawaii. So, yeah. I had to log these as separate books on Goodreads, but I did read this edition, which is a bind-up. So, these short stories are based on the kind of lore of Five Nights at Freddy's, which is a video game series. I read the novels, was it last year, I think? And really enjoyed them, though I've heard people say it's not really canon. This, like, Fazbear Frights line is more for, like, older children, I would say. I think this recommends it for 12 and up. So, I would consider that older children. These are definitely stories that deal with kids who have encounters with the Five Nights at Freddy's animatronics. So that can be either in Freddy Fazbear's pizza joint, or it could be that they stumble upon the animatronic in the real world somehow, and that interaction has an effect on them, kind of thing. So I will say that I enjoyed the short stories in Fetch more than I enjoyed the short stories in Into the Pit. So Into the Pit, the short stories there, I feel all have an overarching theme between the stories of these kids don't appreciate what they have. I feel like you can apply that sentiment to all 3 of the stories in Into the Pit. So in the first story, we have a kid who has kind of lost all of his friends because a major mill in the town is closed and lots of people lost their jobs. So their friends' parents have had to move away to get jobs that will help, sustain them and better living conditions and things like that. And his family has decided to stay because his mom has a real steady job, but his dad doesn't, because his dad lost his job at the mill and is working at a job that pays much less money. So therefore, both of his parents work all the time now. They don't have a lot of extra funds to pass around, and he's on summer vacation. So he's got summer vacation, no friends, he's got to spend it on its own, and he has like very little money to spend on lunch. So he decides that during this time he's going to spend his time going to the library, reading some books, and then going to the local pizza joint and picking up a slice and a soda. But then as the summer wears on, he starts to get really bored, and then he starts to get really mad at the fact that he feels like his parents don't care about him and the troubles that he has had to go through. And so he ends up going someplace into the pit where his mom has told him not to go, and ends up traveling back into time to when Freddy Fazbear was in operation, and finds himself being stalked by a yellow animatronic bunny, which is this guy right here. The second story has to do with a girl who doesn't like her features and wants to change her looks. And then the third story is about a girl who is kind of goth, doesn't really have a lot of friends, and just is angry in her life, and the fact that her parents basically dumped her to live with her grandpa because they got jobs in another continent and left her so that she can still continue to go to school and things like that. And her grandpa's doing the best he can, but he doesn't understand her and feels like he's treating her like a kid, and so she rebels. And then in Fetch, we've got a kid who meets this animatronic who kind of befriends him and is kind of like a dog, I guess. Kind of like, wants to be friends and brings him what he wants. And then the kid starts getting freaked out because he starts taking his requests literally and won't leave him alone. And then you've got the story about a teen who has always been bigger than the rest of his classmates, and then he, because of his size and stuff, have had kids like let him go first in line or let him choose things because they feel like he would, beat on them. So he's kind of been like this since he's been a kid, but he's never like really acted on it. But all of a sudden, teachers are telling him he's a bully and he doesn't understand. His parents don't get him and they're constantly trying to change him, and he knows they're unhappy with him, but he kind of feels like they don't take the time to understand. And he's got this little sister who his parents think is the most perfect thing, and he can't stand her because he knows that she's just not like being truthful about how she acts or what she wants. She just basically acts the way she does to show him up. And so he dislikes her for that. And so basically it's his sister's birthday coming up, and he wants to show his parents that his sister isn't what she says she is. And so, yeah, things happen with that. And then the last story in here has to do with a bunch of kids who really want this special edition Freddy Fazbear animatronic. I think it's a green rabbit called the Plush Trap Chaser, and it's like this limited edition toy, and a lot of people want them for their kids, and so it goes on sale and it sells out super quick, and this kid and his friends are like super bummed. But they happen to notice that there's one behind the counter that they're not selling. And so they inquire about it, and the employee says, oh no, you don't want that one. And so when the kids ask why, the employee just says there's something wrong with it. And they're like, well, we'll just take it anyway. And the employee's like, no, you can't have it. And so the kids decide that they're just going to take it anyway. And so they devise a plan to take the animatronic toy, and they do so, and then things happen. So, like I said, I enjoyed the 3 stories in Fetch more than the 3 stories in Into the Pit. The kids in the Into the Pit stories really irritated me because They were very disrespectful to their elders, and I just wanted to give each of them a swift kick in the rear. The 3 stories in Fetch, though, were much more mysterious. You definitely had kids trying to figure out some things on their own. Though, I will say, they're kids. Their conclusions weren't always the best and brightest at times, I guess. But, yeah. I don't know that I will read any more of these Fazbear Frights books. I may if I need to read like a middle grade book for a readathon, or one of them might fit a prompt. I don't think you need to read these in order because nothing really connects anything besides the whole Five Nights at Freddy's kind of animatronics. At least in these 6, that was the connector, was the animatronics. Not anything to do with Fazbear, Freddy Fazbear's, or the original pizza joint besides Into the Pit, and one of the stories in Fetch occurred in a Freddy Fazbear's. But yeah, I mean, they're entertaining. I think for kids of the age that this is marketed to, it would be scary, and I think it would be much more enjoyable for them. But I read this so that I could get my Impling, and I finished it. So I did get the Impling. And yeah, I would definitely recommend the Five Nights at Freddy's novels, the ones for young adults, more than these. Because even though the novels are not canon per what I've heard, it was still interesting. It was still interesting. And the things that happened to the characters there were much more like edgy, much more suspenseful, and much scarier. These are definitely much more for children. So if you've got a little one around this age, 10 to 12 years old, I think they'd really enjoy it, even up to probably 14 years old, because some of the stories in here do deal with younger high school students, younger teens, and I think they might be able to find some entertainment in that as well. So I finished that, and that finished all of my Orilium Magical Readathon stuff. So now we're into September reads, and I did already finish one thing. So I found out about another readathon, so I'm going to be trying to participate in this particular readathon for the rest of the month. I should say for the month, because I did start it on the 1st, which is the first day of the readathon. And that is the Sufferathon Hotel Readathon. Now, based on the name, you can probably figure out that this readathon is going to be pretty difficult. And so we had like a pre-prompt. So a prompt that came out before the readathon started. And it was kind of like really vague on when you should read for the prompt. But anyway, I'll link the announcement video for the Sufferathon Hotel Readathon from Pages with Paige down in the description box below, so that if you're interested in reading along, you can. I will say it does seem like there's already going to be punishments, though. So if you want to start, I would start very soon. But yeah, it's kind of being co-hosted by Amy from A-Star Reads, which, you know, Amy, I've talked about her several times. The Reading Ren, and one other person that I'm not familiar with, but I'm familiar with Amy and Ren. So I will link the announcement video down below. The first prompt is for directions to get to the hotel. And so the prompt was to read anything with illustrations. And so because I kind of already have my TBR set for September, I don't want to be adding on lots of like super hard reads and things. And so I decided to go with a comic. The comic I decided to read was the first volume of the Fence Comics by C.S. Pacat, Johanna the Mad, and Joana LaFuente, I think is her name. This is the comic series that the Fence novels is based on. So I read a bind-up of volumes 1 through 4, and I really enjoyed it. It was nice to see the characters interacting like in a visual form and actually see fencing on the page. I also really enjoyed the fact that I'm finally getting to see how the characters I read about in the novels met each other. And, the first steps of their journey to becoming the King's Row fencing team. I was surprised that the main character of the comic series seems to be Nicholas, because as far as the novels go, the main characters seem to be Harvard and Aiden. And that's kind of where my pull was for those novels. But with the comics, it seems like the main character is Nicholas, and then it's going to be his interactions with his fencing partner, Seiji. So Seiji is the one that is on the cover of the first bind-up. And I really enjoyed this. It just gave me, kind of prequel vibes, because I started this series with the novels. They were already friends. They were already on the team together. So it was kind of like an established relationship already with those characters. So now me reading these comics and going backwards feel like these are a prequel, but they're actually not. They were released before the novels. So it's kind of weird for me going in the opposite direction as everybody else, but I still really enjoyed the comics, and I will be continuing with them. I gave this first bind-up 4 stars. So I finished my first prompt for the Sufferathon Readathon, Sufferathon Hotel Readathon. Today, we got our first, real prompt, I guess, because the first prompt was, the directions to the hotel. Now we're checking into the hotel. And so this set of prompts, because it's a set of prompts and we've got a week to complete the prompts, or it's not really a set of prompts. It's a prompt and a challenge, which kind of makes me a little bit scared. The challenge part of this week's prompt is not so bad. The prompt is to read a book that's in the genre of your lowest rated book in the last 2 years. So that's a little bit more difficult. I'm going to have to go peruse on that. But the challenge for the week is to roll a d6, and then if you get even number, you got to read 2 hours every day this week, or if you get an odd number, you got to read 1 hour every day this week. I haven't yet rolled that dice. I may do that and insert a clip here. I am hoping that I get odd, because I do already read that 1 hour during my lunch break every day. Plus, I read extra at night before bed. So, if I get the 2 hours, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But 1 is definitely doable. So, I'll need to do that. But, yeah, I'm a little bit scared for the Sufferathon Hotel prompts. That being said, I have started my TBR game prompts, though. So, like I said, I am in the middle of a couple of things. So, let me tell you where I am with that right now. So I started off the month with Guilty Pleasures. This is the first book in the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series by Laurel K. Hamilton. This is actually a reread for me. I read this 6 years ago with someone else, and I don't remember anything that happened. I remember that I didn't think this was a spectacular book. I think I gave it 3 stars. But I don't remember much else. So Anita Blake is a vampire hunter, but she's also a necromancer, so she can bring things back to life. And she gets hired to do a job by the city's most powerful vampire. So I've gotten up to chapter 11, which I haven't even put my bookmark in. So I'm on page 56. So I am about here. I listened to this on audiobook. The first time I read this, I just read this copy. But I listened for 1 day this week, and I got up to chapter 11, and it's just okay. I mean, right now, we're just kind of getting established in the world. We haven't really seen what she can do yet, but she's already gotten herself into trouble a couple of times. So, yeah. I need to get through this book and get to the next one at least, so that I know or have a better idea of whether or not I want to keep these books on my shelves, because I do have a lot of them, because I got them at library book sales or used bookstores for like $1 or less. And so, yeah, it's taking up quite a bit of room on my shelves, and I want to figure out whether or not this is a series that I need to keep or if I can just part with all of them. As of right now, it's just okay for me. But like I said, when I read this the first time, it was just okay, and I don't remember anything that happened then. So we'll see how I get through with this one. So this is for my TBR game. The prompt was Anita Blake. So that's great. And then the other book that I just started last night is for the Year in Eldia Readathon, which is like a side readathon for the Orilium Magical Readathon. And it's got one prompt every month, and then you can like get something for your character at the end of the year. So I'm kind of at that point now where I already know what I want my character to obtain at the end of the year. So I'm on a set row of prompts. And so the prompt for this month for what I want is to read a dark academia book. And this is something that I don't have already on my TBR, but this book is the one that I had planned to read when I had first looked at the list of prompts at the beginning of the year for this prompt. So I started Donna Tartt's The Secret History. So this is widely known as a dark academia book, and it's about a guy who goes to college and gets enamored in the Greek scholars, studying Greek mythology and things like that, I guess. In particular, he kind of is looking at this group of students. But then something happens, and I will tell you that this book, let me just show you how tiny. I'll show you the acknowledgements. How tiny the text is. This book is dense. It is 503 pages of pages that have text that's this small. So one thing that has already made me hesitant about this book is that on the back here where you've got all your little blurbs, it says it is an accomplished psychological thriller. Now, me and psychological thrillers don't exactly get along. I find a lot of the psychological thriller books that I have read to be highly predictable and very boring. For me, there's no thriller aspect to psychological thrillers. So I don't know if that's because I'm just such a well-versed mystery reader. I like mysteries. I like that aspect of figuring things out and guessing the whodunit. I like the little bit of suspense that can be brought with a mystery. I also like horror novels, which have a lot of suspense within them, a lot of thrilling situations. But for me, psychological thrillers don't have any of that. I don't get that feeling. And so they don't work for me. I find myself not enjoying all the psychological thrillers that I have tried to read over the years. So now that's kind of made me take a pause with this. The other thing that has put me on pause with this is the fact that I've already read 8 pages. And so there's a prologue at the beginning, a 2-page prologue, and then I've read 6 more pages. The prologue basically tells you what has happened. Not in detail, but it was enough where I'm just all like, you already know what's happened, you know who's involved, but you don't know the specifics. And that's the kind of storytelling that I really hate. Because for me, not having the ability to be suspenseful and having that question of who done it above your heads, and to have that, you know, constantly being at the forefront of my mind, is not making me interested in trying to find out what happened. Because I already know somebody's dead. I know who's involved, or at least who was there. which I presume they were involved. The only question left for me with this book is why? So this book is basically following the one character who we meet at the beginning, and we're kind of seeing this story from his perspective. We read the prologue from his perspective. The kind of like remembrance of what had happened, what he felt like, what it was like the day that occurrence happened. And then we go to chapter 1, and he's remembering going to the college and his feelings about being at the college for the first time and things like that. Now, I'm 7 pages in, and this book put me to sleep. It was very boring. I normally try to read a chapter before I go to sleep, or at least, read to a chapter marker, because I don't like to stop reading in the middle of a chapter. But these chapters are 40 to 50 pages each, which is fine if what was happening is interesting. But yeah, 7 pages in and my eyes shut. Like, it was not interesting. This guy's voice in my head is very monotone. I'm not really enjoying his recollection, I guess, his what he's telling us. There's nothing happening right now. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this 2 chapters. That'll give me up to chapter 95. If I am not drawn into this book by the end of chapter 2, I'm going to switch books, because I definitely will need the time to read another one, and maybe even switch out again if that one doesn't work for me. I don't know that dark academia is a genre that's for me, but I am already not feeling hopeful that this book is for me. I could be very wrong, but I'm going to give it 2 chapters, give it 95 pages, and see where I'm at. If I had the audiobook, I think this would be a much easier choice for me, because I probably would just listen to the audiobook and just let it go, provided that the narrator wasn't irritating. But my library's copy of this audiobook has a 3-month wait on it, and so there's no way that I'm going to be able to get that audiobook this month. So we'll see how this goes. I did watch somebody today. They were doing a vlog, and they were not being spoilery about it, but they said as each chapter went by, they got more and more engrossed in this story. So I'm kind of hoping that is what's going to happen here with me. But as I said, based on what I've consumed, which hasn't been much, I'm not impressed. So we'll see how this goes. I will definitely give you an update next week. But yeah, this is kind of like my bedtime read, what I'm reading right before bed right now. Now, I have one more thing to share with you before this clip is done, and that is my mostly ghostly. So I have put in a little bit on this. It's been off and on the last few weeks because, as I mentioned before, I have been having pain, and I'm just having all kinds of pain at this point. It's not fun, and it's in different areas now. So now my pain is more in my elbow here, up my arm, and kind of in the back of the shoulder, which I don't know what's causing it, but because I've been dealing with pain, I've been trying not to overexert as far as the knitting goes. So I have put in a few rows, so let me find the marker. Okay, so I was here and I put in this much, which isn't a lot, but progress is progress is progress. So now I have about this much, which I think is a good amount. I probably need double that and a little bit more before it's at the length that I want to do the ribbing at the bottom. But yeah, so far so good. Still really enjoying the look of this project. I'll lean back a little bit so you can kind of see all the ghosties. And yeah, so if I pull this down, this is kind of sitting right now, right below my belly button. So I definitely need more length. So I do think more than double what I already have is needed. Plus I am doing some A-line shaping on this one. So it's going to be more tunic style. And so it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which means every 6 rows or so, I've got more stitches. So yeah, I'm just like slowly putting in what I can when I can, but I'm still really enjoying this project. We'll see if I get that done by Halloween. That's kind of the goal, but I want my pain to like allow me to put in more rows because I'm kind of feeling like my knitting mojo is coming back. I have been watching more knitting podcasts and getting back into trying to watch those because I know Vlogmas is coming up and I so enjoy watching Vlogmas in December, and it just like really amps up my knitting mojo, and I kind of want to get there before then because I do have plans this year as far as my knitting goes. So yeah, that's kind of everything that happened this week. It is a holiday weekend, and so I do intend on relaxing a little bit, at least on Monday. Today was an all-day filming day. I've got to do some editing after I finish this video. On Sunday, I do the bulk of the editing for the rest of my videos that go up during the rest of the week. So Sundays aren't really a relaxing day for me, but Monday should be. Monday should be a nice relaxing day. I should be able to not have to worry about video editing or making and just enjoy the day. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for you right now. It has been overcast. It's been really humid. We got a little bit of rainfall yesterday. We are in the like 70s and 80s, though the humidity is making it feel much more hot than the temperature is, but I'll take it over the 100 degrees that we had last week. So we are going to go back up into the 90s this coming week. For me, it's not fall weather yet. It has to be consistently like cooler temps for me to consider it as fall. It still is very much summer right now, and so until we get consistently cooler weather, I won't be in the fall mood. But that doesn't mean that I won't be enjoying some pumpkin spice lattes or a pumpkin spice cold brew. I do get a free drink for hosting the manga club every month, so I get 1 free drink a month. I did already have a pumpkin cold brew from the last meeting. That was really good. It was really, really good. I may be in the mood for some pumpkin like baking items, some maybe pumpkin muffins I'll make, but we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see. But today I've done a lot and I'm ready to like take a break. So I am going to end this video right here. Let me know down in the comments below how your August ended up. Did you get everything that you wanted to read? And if you were participating in the Orilium Magical Readathon, did you finish all of your prompts and your classes for your profession? And if nothing else, and you'd just like to let me know that you were here, if you could leave me a rain cloud emoji down in the comments below, that would be greatly appreciated and would really help me out, and that will do it for me today. So I hope you're all doing great. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And until next time, take care and smile always. Bye.